Lucian sat at the piano in the bar. It was a late night, nearly closing time. His shift as a bar pianist was technically over. The last guests were leaving. The bartender turned off the open sign, and within minutes the once vibrant and loud bar became lifeless and still. But not silent, since Lucian played a wonderful song that filled up the empty halls with rich resonance. This song was the most complex and stunning compared to anything he played during his shift, because this was the first time he was allowed to play anything he wanted. During the day, as an entertaining musician, his job is to play for the customers. Some think it simply means that he plays a list of popular songs all day and that's it. Some guests are even requesting something from him, usually after some drinks. But the truth is that a bar musician's job is much more complex than this. His job is to give a background to the bar, a melody that unconsciously leads the guests towards a feeling. A nice and playful song during the launch is running across the tables, giving a colorful framework for the conversations of the guests. It needs to be fresh and vibrant, but not intrusive. It needs to slip across the room barely noticed, giving a flavor to the discussions without dominating them. In the evening, the smooth jazz fills the halls with a smoky mist, giving privacy to couples and covering others who want to be left alone with their thoughts. This song sets walls, rich with textures and deep tones between the tables, completely separating the group, which is having a serious meeting, and the guy who thinks about quitting his job. Lucian's song needs to capture the mood of the room and guide it to where it should be. He is playing much less on the piano, but rather on the room itself. He is the soul of the bar, which note by note embraces its guests and gives them a calm and welcoming environment. His music is not only the background of the bar, but also the bedrock of the guests' memories associated with it, even if they themselves are never noticing it. But at night, after closing time, it was Lucian's time. Now he was not the receptionist welcoming the guests or the spice that flavors lovers' kisses. Now the room was filled with his song, with his soul. It was his time to scream the untold tales of notes building up during the day. His pain, his joy, everything which the guests have nothing to do with. This was the only time for this song when no one could hear it. The people in the room are not here for their speeches to be suppressed by the glowing radiance of Lucian's piano sound. So Lucian waited every night for his time to start his aria. This was the reason he liked this job. Every day he impatiently waits for this moment when he can be alone with his instrument and can sing his thoughts and feelings as a song. Lucian played an angry melody about his annoyance with the new waiter who screams the orders to the kitchen, giving a dissonant ripple to his quiet melody in the room, which he needs to slowly calm down and correct, just to be disturbed again by the next scream. He played a bittersweet tune about the drunk man grieving over his wife at the back tables, attempting to provide a warm and comforting melody with limited success. He played the stories of his day, childhood and dreams, everything that just popped into his mind. But when he just finished the song about the dream he had last night, a loud, slow clap dragged him back to the piano chair in the bar. A man was still sitting at the back table. It was not unusual for someone to be here this late. The bar allows the guests to finish their drinks after closing. Lucian did not bother with these people when he started his personal concert, but he did not like when they interrupted him. The man stared at Lucian with a strange smile on his face. Lucian nodded to him, acknowledging the praise, and turned back to the piano to pick up the trail he wanted to go with his next song. But before he could play any note, the man started to speak to him.
I watched you for a time now. You are really talented.
Thank you,
said Lucian with a small but noticeable sigh. He is not allowed to be rude to the guests, not even if the bar is closed.
You see,
started the man.
I was searching for someone with your capabilities for a long time. To make the long story short, I want to hire you for a private session.
Lucian frequently got requests from the rich guests of the bar. Everything from private concerts, classes and weddings, but he usually declined them. Lucian earned enough to have a nice, comfortable life. Besides, these people usually did not want to pay too much anyway. In their eyes, he was just a cheap asset of the room they could borrow from the bar for a small fee.
Thank you, sir, for your offer, but I'm afraid I need to decline.
But I didn't even say what I want from you,
said the man with his smile undisturbed by the rejection.
That's true, but the thing is, I just simply don't do private concerts.
I don't want a concert. I just want a single song.
Lucian frowned.
In that case, please come again when we are open, and I will be happy to play your song.
It's not that simple, I'm afraid. This song is not something that can be easily described, nor easily played,
said the man while slowly waving his hands through the air.
If you bring me a sheet, I can play it for you.
There is no sheet. I want a song that shows what is at the deepest depths of a human's mind and soul. But not just that. I want a song that shows what is beyond that.
The man glared at the ceiling and moved his hands with big gestures while he described the impossible tune.
I don't think I can write such a song, let alone...
I will pay you 1 million.
Lucian stopped in the middle of the sentence. He grimaced in disbelief.
I will pay you 1 million in cash. 100K now and 900K tomorrow night if you play me the song.
Lucian stayed silent. He was unsure what to answer to this, but before he could think of anything, the man stood up and started to walk toward him. Now, as he emerged from the shadowy corner, it was the first time that Lucian could take a good look at him. The strange man wore a nice expensive suit which was crumpled and unbuttoned. His hair was fixated with gel to give a stylish manager look. Only a large portion of it already freed itself from the firm grip of the hair product and joyfully jumped around his head. It looked like part of his hair was at war with the rest. Overall, the man gave the appearance of a very rich and very drunk individual. However, as he approached the pianist, his movements told a different story. He had a stable and proud stance and elegant, flawless movements. His steps gave a stable rhythm with no sign of any imbalance. As the man walked, his drunk appearance seemed more like an act that was broken by his theatrical movements. The man stood next to Lucian and placed an envelope on the top of the piano. It wasn't open, but its stretched rectangle shape screamed the fact it was struggling to hide. It was filled with money. A lot. Lucian still did not find a word to react to all this, but the man took the opportunity to start describing his strange request.
I saw what you were doing. You did watch this room and all the people in it and shifted it at your will. You used this talent of yours to give them a good time. You were like a spider on a web who jumps immediately if it feels dissonant waves,
said the man while slowly glancing around the room.
I know that you have been doing this for a long time now, but I also know that you never really did think about what are you doing. You move your consciousness outside of your body. Let me elaborate,
reacted the man to Lucian's grimacing face.
When you play the piano, you are not thinking about where your arms are or what they are doing. You simply want to make a certain melody or note, and your arms are just moving by themselves. At that point, you and the piano become one. You stop existing as a human being. Instead, you become a new entity, which is the inseparable combination of you and your instrument. And as such, you stop seeing with your eyes and stop moving your arms. Rather, you play notes and you make songs.
The stranger tapped his fingers ceremoniously on the top of the piano while he described Lucian's playing and continued to accompany his speech with big theatrical gestures.
Everyone can feel this kind of shift in consciousness. For example, when someone tapping the walls trying to find the light switch in the dark with their hands. That time they see the world through their hands. Their consciousness is in their hands. Or when someone is reading a good book and stops to see the letters or the paper. His consciousness is between his body and his book as he is inside the story, and doesn't even realize that his body just turned a page. Everyone experiences this on some level, but you are different.
The man's wandering eyes fixated on Lucian for the first time during his monologue, with no intention of slipping away again.
Because you not only become one with your piano, but as this new entity, you become one with the entire room. Most people have little experience shifting the consciousness outside of their body, but you feel yourself at home there. You do not just want to make a certain melody, but you want to induce a certain feeling inside a guest. And your piano, your body instinctively reacts.
Lucian listened to the man's description, and even though he found it mostly nonsense, he related to it more, as he liked to admit it to himself. The man followed with enthusiasm, accompanying his words with wide movements.
Have you ever thought about how you can do this? It's because your mind is capable of much more than our human existence lets it. You, the real you, are sitting in the void watching the world through this window of flesh. Your body. This is your only way to see the world, your only source of information, but it restricts you.
The stranger became more and more invested in his speech, and while his eyes were still fixated on Lucian, it looked more as if he looked through him.
Just think about it. Your mind is extremely powerful. Theoretically, you should be capable to learn or imagine anything. Yet try to imagine a four-dimensional cube. It's mathematically well-defined and not even complex. Yet our brain struggles to even comprehend the concept. That is because our body perceives the world as three-dimensional. And this constant flow of information streamlines our minds and consciousness. Yet your piano gives you a bridge to the world, a new small window between your mind and senses where you can see the world as others can't. And in this view, you simply see the missing sounds in the air that you need to fill in to make a certain feeling in someone.
The stranger's gestures slowed down but remained to be very wide and enthusiastic.
I want you to do exactly this. Move outside of your body with your music and take a deep look at yourself. Don't look outside the window, rather inside, and play the song of what lies beyond yourself.
The man ignored Lucian's confused look as he described his request.
I want to see the void, and as such I want to see my mind as it is, unbound and untainted by the restrictions of the flesh. I want to see the world behind, inside the void.
The man glared at the ceiling with his arms open and stood still, signaling that he finished the monologue. Lucian licked his lips and searched for the most polite way to send the stranger home.
Sir, it's flattering that you believe that I can compose such a song, but I'm afraid I can't do that.
The man lowered his arms and looked at Lucian with the same strange smile as before.
You can. You already do that. Only you turn around at the door before opening it.
Still, I don't know how could I open this door of yours.
Don't worry, you will. I'll help you tomorrow.
The man started to walk away. Lucian saw that this was his last opportunity to decline.
Sir, I can't take this money.
The stranger interrupted him while walking towards the exit.
That money is yours, even if you play the song, even if you don't. I'm certain that you will play that song for me tomorrow, but if not, then it is the price of my misjudgment.
As he finished his sentence, the man walked out of the bar. The room was still and quiet. Lucian stared at the door where the stranger left. Then he looked at the envelope which contained more money than he had earned in a year.
He was drunk,
thought Lucian.
Not just drunk, he must have taken some serious drugs. Yeah. Most likely tomorrow he will come back searching for his money. Maybe even calling the police.
Lucian's thoughts were running around in his head. He decided to bring the envelope here tomorrow and give it back to the man when he woke up from his delirium. He closed the bar and went home, fearing that this would be the first time that he gets robbed on the streets. He was covered by the irrational thought that somehow criminals are sensing the presence of a large amount of money, and now he has a target mark on his back as he went home. But he arrived without a problem. Lucian collapsed in his bed with the stranger's speech still echoing in his head. Could it be really possible? The next day, Lucian was still uncomfortable holding the envelope. He did put it in the inside pocket of his elegant pianist garment to ensure its safety. It made a noticeable bump on Lucian's chest. No one cared about it, only the pianist himself. All day in his shift, he waited for the man to walk in searching for his money. As time passed and the man didn't show up, Lucian thought that he was so sick from the hangover that he only be capable of coming back at night. But as hours passed and his shift was over, the man was nowhere to be seen. As the bartender turned off the open sign, Lucian looked around the now empty room and acknowledged that the man didn't show up. Most likely he forgot the entire night, and he never comes back. Maybe it was for the best, but Lucian still did not like the idea of having this money. As the silence settled in, Lucian started to play on the piano. He played his stress, his confusion about the situation he found himself in, and the irrational fear of being mugged. He floated at the river of his feelings created by his song, but when he played the piece about the stranger and left a second of silence in the song for his slow clap, he indeed heard it. The sound dragged him back to the bar, and Lucian realized that the stranger indeed was clapping in the backside of the room where he was sitting yesterday. Lucian was certain that he was not there when he started the song, but he didn't have much time to think about this, because the man stood up and walked towards him. As he stepped out of the shadows, he looked somewhat the same as yesterday, only his look was flawless today. His suit was stunning, fitting properly without any wrinkles, and his hair looked like he just walked out of a hair salon. He was the same as yesterday, only now his movements were in perfect synergy with his looks. Lucian reached for the envelope in his pocket with the intent to give it back, but the man was faster and did put a briefcase on the piano. Lucian was stunned. Not only the man is not here to take his money back, but he also did bring the 900K he was talking about yesterday. From all the possible outcomes of this meeting, this was the one Lucian was expecting the least.
So, are you willing to play me the song today?
Lucian stared at the briefcase in disbelief.
I can't. I don't know how.
The man looked at him with a strange smile.
You just did it before when I interrupted you. I only ask you to play the song What Is Inside You, but not just the stories of yesterday, but your whole life. Go as deep as you can with it to your core. And when nothing else was left to say, you got through to the void.
But you want a sort of doorway or something. I can't do such a thing.
Whatever you play, I give you this bag. You don't need to worry about anything. Play me a song that goes down in the deepest depths of your soul. Go as deep when nothing else is left from you to sing about. And try to play what's there. Whatever happens, you complete your side of the agreement.
Lucian was cornered. He knew that whatever he said, the stranger would not let this go. Maybe it's the easiest to simply play what he wants. Worst case scenario, he leaves with his money and never returns.
All right.
The stranger's smile becomes a creepy grim.
Splendid.
Lucian tried to ignore the man's presence as he concentrated on his thoughts and feelings, trying to get one to capture it in a song before it swims away in the distance. He took a deep breath, clearing his mind, and played a single note. The tinkling sound of the piano ran through the air and bounced off the walls, filling the bar with a rich tone. Lucian listened to the rippling surface of the sound, and as it calmed down and became still, he let another droplet of small note in. Through the weaving sea of sound, he started to see his mind and thoughts floating toward the surface, and as such, he started to describe them. He sent a nice melody that uncovered his hopes and dreams, and as they flowed away, manifested in resonance, Lucian's fears filled their empty place. Lucian reached for them and cowered them with rich textures as he dived into the layers of his concerns and irrational thoughts, and slowly as he processed them all, they vanished in the ether around him. Lucian dived deeper and deeper inside his mind and soul. He found childhood memories believed to be lost forever, and closed thoughts that were kept as a secret even to himself. As Lucian melted away his persona in the river of sound, he uncovered a lot of untouched truths about himself as he watched them dissolving around him. He realized the mountain of depression that clanged on his shoulders for years at this point. He spent a long time dissecting it in disbelief. How could this be here unnoticed? As slowly but surely Lucian's mind dissolved, nothing left of him, just the deepest thoughts and fears of his core. He wants to be loved in life and remembered in death, and the crushing fear that his life will be over before he can achieve any of that. His piano cried the confession, covering the room with dark sadness, and then after hours of seemingly infinite tales of feelings, suddenly, nothing left. Lucian stood in the silence. He couldn't find anything left of himself. He just saw the empty void around him. He sent a small note into the emptiness, but now its chime wandered away to the infinite. Now he couldn't fill this place with his tone. He was a droplet in the ocean, sending small symmetric ripples to the nothingness. But after a while, something came back. Usually, when his notes are bouncing back from the walls, they greet him cheerfully, waiting for the next sound friend who will accompany them on the next journey. But now it wasn't his note. It wasn't a note. Lucian felt the growing resonance that slowly but surely took over the still emptiness around him. Only fancy could interpret these chaotic weaves of raw force as sound. But for Lucian, it was the most unusual song he heard in his whole life. Lucian sent an unsure melody on top of the waves in the distance. They traveled fast and far, and he could not sense them anymore. But soon, large waves of inhuman rhythm came back, throwing Lucian around like a storm blowing a piece of dust. Lucian tried to stay afloat. He sent out the loudest harmonies he could produce, but his insignificance was obvious. He realizes his notes are eaten by the rumbling void, whatever he does. He was too small to send anything through the mountains of resonance, but he slowly realized he could send his notes on top of them. Lucian struggled to pick up the asymmetric rhythm and throw small circular droplets in the river of dissonance. Slowly he picked up the inhumane dissonant tone as he played it himself, and as he moved together with the overwhelming force, it slowed down and stopped. After a short time of silence, a small ripple caught Lucian, as if someone were poking the beak of a small bird. Lucian sent back a reassuring disharmony, reacting to the feeling. Now a large weave came demanding an answer. It got an answer. The ripples slowly cowered Lucian, becoming stronger and stronger, gently embracing him and slowly bringing him on top of the waves to the distance. Lucian fought to stay afloat. With all of his talent, he found it nearly impossible to move together with the waves of incompatible rhythms and disharmonies. As he struggled to stay somewhat in place, as he was dragged by the unmeasurable force, Lucian sent unsure symmetric round tones, pushing him away from the rumbling chaos. But the force re-embraced him shortly and pushed him gently forward. The waves became more and more chaotic and strong. Now Lucian could do nothing to resist them. As the trembling waves nearly crushed him, he started to see the source. In the black nothingness, he got closer and closer to something. All the senses of Lucian trampled as he got closer to the center of the unstoppable power. He couldn't hear anymore, only feel the crushing force in every cell of his. It was far from him, but still, it blinded Lucian, just as if he was looking at the sun, or more like a black hole emitting blinding darkness. He felt that he could fall apart at any moment as he approached the radiating center. He couldn't sense rhythm or harmonies anymore, only the presence of the void and the feeling of being watched. Keeping himself on top of the chaotic wars now proved to be impossible. As he was swallowed by them, Lucian could do nothing, just endure the inspecting gaze of the void. He was just seconds away from completely dissolving in the darkness when another symmetric ripple ran through the tides. This song was humane, with theatrical and elegant movements that consciously traveled to the center of the force, unaffected by its terrible wars. Lucian watched in confusion as the round melody floated towards the source, disappearing quickly on the horizon, and with it, so did the blinding chaos leave. The once crushing ripples became calm and gentle, and the void slowly became still and empty as it was before. Lucian was at the bar again. He just started to see his surroundings, even though his eyes were never closed in the first place. He just realized that he was not breathing. Who knows for how long at this point? He gasped for air and collapsed on his instrument. He tried to collect his thoughts. As he looked around, the bar was just the same as before. Everything looked like nothing happened. On the top of the piano sat the briefcase filled with money, but the stranger was nowhere to be seen, and was never to be seen again.